Today we're going to be looking at a game of mine against Nelson. Now at this point in the tournament, both of us were on 5 out of 5. So this game was most likely going to decide the championship. I opened with knight f3, Nelson played d5, d4, knight f6, c4, and here a surprise, g6. Now I've never seen this idea before, but the idea is that after c takes d5, knight takes d5 is actually really bad because e4, kicking the knight away. But Nelson's idea was to play bishop g7. But here white can exploit this inaccurate move order by playing the move queen a4 check, giving black a very awkward choice. Now black can defend against this check in a number of ways, but all of them have their own problems. For instance, if black plays bishop d7, I can retreat back with queen b3, and black's not getting his pawn back. And if black plays king f8, then he now can't castle, and I can simply play knight c3, knight takes d5, e4, takes, and this is a terrible version of the Grunfeld. Black needs to spend a lot of time solving the problem with his king, which makes it very hard to get typical Grunfeld counterplay in the center. So instead, Nelson finds the best move, which is c6. D takes c6, knight takes c6. This is a very standard Grunfeld sacrifice, although in recent years, computers have evaluated these type of positions as being slightly better for white. But practically it's still interesting. Now I played e3, the most solid way to continue, castles, and now bishop e2, developing my pieces. Nelson plays bishop d7, x-raying my queen. There are no good discoveries at the moment, but in the future, who knows? Now I simply castled, black played rook c8, and now I play knight c3. Now here Nelson comes up with an interesting idea. He plays e5. Now I took this pawn on e5, of course, there's not much of a choice. The idea, of course, is that if black plays knight takes e5, well, the queen is attacked, but I can simply take on a7, and that's just 2 pawns. So instead, Nelson finds the best idea with knight g4, and it's impossible for me to defend against the threat of knight takes e5. So I simply played rook d1, and Nelson takes on e5 with the g knight. Now here I actually saw the best move, which was to play knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, and bishop g4. But I was worried about the idea bishop takes h2. And after king takes h2, queen h4 check, I thought that black would simply take the bishop on g4 with a fantastic position. What I missed, of course, was that I can simply play bishop h3, as the queen on a4 is actually defended by the knight on c3. Because of that, I played the move queen a3, which is very passive. Now Nelson brought this last piece into the game with rook e8, and he's also thinking of playing some bishop f8 ideas in the future. I simply played bishop d2, developing my own pieces. Now Nelson played bishop f8, hitting my queen, queen b3, and now knight to a5. And here my initial idea was to put the queen on c2, but I suddenly got worried about some bishop f5 or knight c4 ideas, and I thought, why not to put my queen more actively on d5? Now of course, I saw that Nelson's best reply was to play the move rook c5, queen d4 was played instantly, and what I hoped to do was to exploit this very awkward placement of pieces, rook on c5 and a knight on a5, and perhaps fork it. But the issue is that it's actually really hard to do that because my queen is so exposed. And the other thing is that the rook on the 5th rank is very powerful indeed, as we'll see. So Nelson plays knight a to c6, hitting my queen. My queen went to f4. Now Nelson took the knight on f3. And here I have a choice, because if I take with a bishop, which was my initial intention, Nelson can play rook f5, hitting my queen, queen g3, and rook g5, and I didn't see a good way to get out of this repetition, because if I try to run with my queen, for instance, to c4, then that runs into knight e5, and on the next move, black's going to take on f3, destroying my structure and gaining a winning attack. So that's not possible. So instead, I decided to take on f3 with the queen. And the idea is that if rook f5, then I can simply play queen g3, rook g5, queen f4, and run to c4. And now knight e5 doesn't work that well anymore because there's no bishop on f3 to attack. So instead, Nelson played the move knight to e5, hitting the queen on f3. And here I could actually have taken the pawn on b7, but I didn't see that. I put my queen on g3. Nelson played queen e7. Now I played knight e4 and rook c2. So here I was trying to make some line like bishop c3 work, but it just doesn't. So after rook c2, I decided to play rook c1, offering the trade of rooks. Nelson took on c1, and I took back. So I'm still a pawn up. Nelson plays bishop c6, hitting the knight on e4. I dropped the knight back to c3, and Nelson played queen b4, putting pressure on my queen side, but there's also a bit of an X-ray on the queen, which as we'll see, will become relevant later. So I played b3, Nelson played bishop d6, threatening knight f3, so I'm forced to play the move queen g5. And here Nelson made a huge blunder playing the move queen a5. And it seems quite crafty. After all, he has the threat of knight f3, and I defended against that immediately with the move h4. But right after I played the move, I realized that I actually could have played the move knight e4. When the queen is defended, the black queen is under attack, and knight f6 is coming up. There's no good way for black to defend against this. Oh well, that's chess, I guess. Nelson played queen a3, getting out of this discovery. I played rook d1, bishop f8. Now I retreated the bishop to e1, opening up the d file for my rook. Nelson continued with queen b2, infiltrating with his queen. I simply dropped my other bishop back, bishop g7, knight d5, with knight f6 ideas, although not immediately. h6, and now I played queen f4. Now here Nelson took on d5, and here the best way for him to play was to activate his rook and try to bring it to c1, and this would actually have given him a lot of counterplay. But instead, he was tempted by the possibility of winning a piece with queen c1, but I simply defended the bishop with queen b4, bringing my queen back into the defense. Black played b6, and my queen dropped all the way back to d2. Now my position is very safe, and with the two bishops, I should be winning, but with so little time, it's really hard to say. Bishop f6, hitting this pawn on h4. g3, defending it. Just want to consolidate, given I'm up material. Nelson's down a few seconds. Bishop g7, bishop b4, activating the bishop. Queen c6, bishop d6. Now I'm starting to have threats of my own. Knight g4, take the knight. H takes g4, things are flying. What to do? Bishop f4. Queen e6, rook d7, rook c8. Now there could be threats on the first rank or queen e4 ideas. So queen d5, queen trade would be fantastic for me. Queen takes, rook c1 check, king d2, rook c2, rook d8 check, and the idea is that rook d7 now hits both pawns. Black has to play rook takes a2, now rook f7, king g8, and now rook d7, bishop c3, now e4. My idea is bishop e3. Stopping bishop e1 ideas. Bishop b4, threatening bishop c5, which I prevent with bishop e3. Rook b2, a blunder. Rook takes a7. Rook b3, and now we can take that pawn on v6 indeed. Now white's 2 pawns up. This should be easily winning, but with just 11 seconds, it's not so easy. That being said, Nelson is down to 4-3. Bishop d2. Bishop c5, bishop was attacked. And bishop c3. Bishop e3. Bishop a3 was winning on the spot. And Nelson loses on time. What a dramatic end to one of my most exciting rapid games this year. I hope you enjoyed this coverage of my game, and if you'd like to see more exciting games, then check out this video above. You won't regret it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.